What's up, y'all, and welcome back to the Open Your Own Door podcast. I'm your host, Paige Espey. I am sitting in my sunroom. I actually just finished recording the previous episode, but I'm like so on fire and so excited to talk about the next thing that I was just like, what the heck? I have like an hour or two before I have to go pick up the boys from daycare, so I'm gonna go on and get this episode rolling and talk to you all about my third pregnancy. So one thing that I wanted to say to you guys before we move forward is that I always hope, and my intention with this show is that you will take my stories and you will take my experiences and you will apply them to your own lives. And you might not feel so alone in your own story and in your own journey when you hear the things that I'm going through over here. Every episode will not just be story time, I promise. Like I said, the first couple episodes, I just felt like they had to be story time because I feel like you guys need to know me and my story and where I come from and, you know, everything leading up to where I am right now. But I do have a lot of plans in the future. I already have written down a ton of ideas for episodes and things I want to talk about. I do eventually want to have guests on the show. Like I said, I'm still sort of getting used to this whole microphone and even just like the schedule that comes along with podcasting, because right now my schedule looks like on Mondays, I am pretty open. Yesterday, the boys had a doctor's appointment, and then in the afternoon, I actually picked through a house yesterday. So I am a vintage reseller. If you are new here or you're just now kind of picking up on the show, I own a vintage shop in a small town and I am just into all things creative. I like to paint, I like to craft, I like to teach art classes. I also dabble in interior design. I am just really pro creativity in all ways, shapes, and form. Right now, my number one way that I make money is through selling vintage, and I sell vintage online, but I also sell vintage in a brick and mortar storefront in a really small town called Huntingdon, Tennessee. So that's kind of who I am. That's what I do. This podcast is a new venture for me. I am really here to just talk to you all about the importance of following your intuition and following your own curiosities and making sure that you are living your life not out of approval. You're not just doing things just to prove that you're worth something to other people, that you are making decisions, and that all of your life reflects who you truly are at your core. So that's really why I'm here. That's really why I'm sharing what I'm sharing. Whenever I get on this microphone, I just want to be sure to set in the intention, and so that you all know that I want you to see yourself in my own stories. I want for you to apply any sort of insight that I have learned to your own life. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my getting pregnant with my third child. I am 32 weeks pregnant at the time of recording this. And this pregnancy has not been rainbows and butterflies. It has been very up and down. It's been very scary. And this is honestly probably my last pregnancy. If we're being honest, I am 33 years old, and not that you can't get pregnant when you're 33 or 35 or even 38 or even 40. But my body, I think, is just over producing babies. I really do. And you'll kind of hear about that as I talk through this pregnancy with you guys. But also, this pregnancy has taught me so much, and it has taught me that, you know, you really got to go after the things that you actually want. This pregnancy has forced me to really get quiet with myself and stop living life on autopilot. You know, even though I do have a job and I do things that I love day in and day out, sometimes it is very easy to just get caught up in the everyday minutia and just get caught up doing the same things today that you did yesterday without ever questioning it and without ever taking the time to check in and ask yourself, like, is this something that I even want to still be doing? Or is there something else that's calling me out there in the universe? And so that's kind of what this whole episode is all about. So I'm going to kind of get started talking about the beginning of this year. So at the beginning of this year, 2025, in January, whenever I was kind of doing my yearly planning and mapping things out on my, I don't know if you guys have heard of the big ass calendar. It is the best thing ever. I can maybe put a link to it in the show notes. The guy who created it, I think his name is Jesse Itzler. I'd have to look that up to confirm it, but it's this huge calendar that's on this big sheet of paper, and it comes with like sticky notes that you can color code things. And so in January and even in December, I will start the yearly planning for the next year. So one of my biggest goals for 2025 was to create a course that my followers or whoever wanted to purchase that would teach you all about how to grow your social media account if you are a small business or if you're like a creative person, an artist, that kind of thing. So I've been teaching social media courses in person, like social media classes in person for like almost 4 years now. And I enjoy them, but really I got to a point where like every time I would go and speak about social media or teach a class on social media, every time I would do it, people would say like, can you record it and send it to me? Can you record it and send it to me? And so I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I just need to create like an online course where I teach people about the importance of not just having your brick and mortar shop, but also growing your presence online and through socials. And so when in January, I really started planning and mapping that out. And I was doing like one-on-one calls with people every week. So gosh, in January and even February of this past year, again, I was back in my workhorse mode. I was like, okay, like this is kind of what my day would look like. I would wake up with the boys, I would get them ready for daycare. I would take Worth to school. Okay, so like I haven't even talked about this on here yet, but Worth, who is my oldest, he is 5. Last year, so like in the beginning of this year in January, he was in pre-K at like our primary school. And my little boy, Lake, he was in daycare. So now that it's a new school year, we're in September. Now that it's a new school year, we're actually holding Worth back. Like we're not holding him back, but like we just don't want him to start kindergarten yet because we don't want him to start kindergarten until he's 6. So, but he missed the age cutoff by like 15 days, so he couldn't do pre-K again. So like he's kind of going backwards, which is a little bit unfortunate. So he's like back in daycare right now, whereas last year he was in pre-K. Anyways, that was just a side note. A lot of people are like super interested in what creative people do, or moms who have businesses. People are interested in like where their kids go during the day. So that's where my kids are at right now. They are both at daycare. Anyway, but in January, whenever I was starting out the year, he was in pre-K. So like he had to, in daycare, like it does not matter what time they get there. I could drop them off at 9:30, and that's kind of what we do now. But, you know, back in January, he had to be at school by whatever time, 7:50. So I would drop him off, and then I would come home and I would get Lake ready and I would take him to daycare. And so like I was normally back at my house by like 8:30. Literally, I would hop on a call with somebody at 8:30 because I had put it out on my Instagram where I said, hey, I am going to actually do some one-on-one phone calls. And I was doing these for free. Y'all, I was doing these for free, really just to kind of get a feel of like what people needed help with their social medias. Before I started to create an online course, I kind of wanted to get an idea of what people's pain points actually were and like what people actually needed help with before I spent all my time and money like creating a course around it. So in January and February, I was very much in my like gathering information from people. I would take the kids to school. I would come home. I would hop on a call from 8:30 to 9. And a lot of times it went over. And then at 9 o'clock, I would get in the shower and I would get ready for work. And then I would go to the store and be at the store from 10 to 5. And that's what I was doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a lot at the beginning of this year. So not only was I waking up, getting my kids, breakfast, off to school, and then I would do a phone call, a one-on-one phone call, and then I would take a shower and get ready, and then I would go to the store. And so, it was like 30-minute increments. My days were very booked up at the beginning of this year. And so, like I said, I hit the ground running. I was excited about this online course idea of teaching people about social media. I actually hosted like a workshop at my storefront in our garage. I've mentioned in previous episodes that we have a garage so my store is in an old auto body shop. And so one side of the shop is a retail space and the other side of the shop is an event space. So I actually hosted like a workshop for ladies to teach them about social media. So anyway, I did that in January, and then in February, at the end of February, I found out that I was pregnant. And to talk about timeline and everything, basically, we basically only tried for like, and I don't even know if tried is the word. We weren't like super sold on getting pregnant or super sold on not getting pregnant. But basically, after starting my postpartum period at 18 months, Lake was 18 months old whenever I got my postpartum, like, first period back. So it was 2 cycles after that before I got pregnant. So, anyways, got pregnant, and around that time, obviously, is when I started feeling really sick. This first trimester of this pregnancy was awful, like absolutely awful. And it wasn't necessarily like, when I say it was awful, it wasn't necessarily like I was vomiting every second. Honestly, I think I would have felt better if I could have thrown up. But or if I could have made myself throw up, I feel like I would have felt better. I was just extremely nauseous all the time. Like the fatigue, like, fatigue that I can't even describe. I had some of this stuff with Worth when I was pregnant with my first son, but I don't remember it being as bad with my second son. But with this baby, it was a doozy. I was in the bed for probably 10 weeks, just like staring at the wall because I just was so out of it. My hormones were all messed up. And then on top of that, I just had a lot of scares during my first trimester. So even finding out I was pregnant was kind of drama because I took a pregnancy test on a Saturday. I was teaching a paint class at my store. It was like a birthday party. I was teaching a paint class, and I, for whatever reason, like, thought it was necessary to take a pregnancy test, took the pregnancy test, and it was negative. So then on Tuesday, so a couple days later, I like wake up in the middle of the night, and I just had this weird feeling. Like I had like kind of thought I started my period, but I wasn't really sure. And then I was like, oh my God, what if that wasn't my actual period? What if that was implantation bleeding? And so I was like, OMG, I've got to take a test. This was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not kidding. I like sat straight up in bed, and I knew I had some tests in my car. So I go to my car, get a test, come in, and it's a digital test, and it's positive at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay. So then I like can't sleep. I'm like Googling everything under the sun. And then I think I take another test, and it was like one of the line tests, and like one line was very prominent and the other one was there, but it wasn't extremely prominent. And so basically that sent me into a whole spiral for the next couple of days of like taking a million pregnancy tests. All the digital ones would say positive, but all the ones with the lines would be like big question mark, like not sure if I'm actually pregnant or not. So anyway, I ended up telling Will that I was pregnant, and that weekend, so it was Thursday, so I took the first pregnancy test on Tuesday, and then on Thursday we were going out of town. We were going to Memphis for an event that we go to every single year. And so on Thursday I ended up stopping at the doctor, and they confirmed pregnancy with a urine test, but they were like, we need to do blood work, obviously, too. So literally my boys, like my 2 little boys, they went with me to that doctor's appointment. And then we go on to Memphis for the weekend for this event that's like a work thing for my husband. It's called the Mid-South Farm and Gin Show. If you are from this area or you are into agriculture at all, you know what the Farm and Gin Show is. Our family goes every single year. We stay at the Peabody. It's like this whole fun big weekend, and literally I think I had just pulled into Memphis. I know exactly where I was. I was in my friend Whitney Winkler's. I was in her store shopping, and I get a call, and I was like, yeah, like I think I had just told her that I was pregnant because I had just come from that appointment. And then I get a call from my OB telling me that my HCG levels were not anywhere where they needed to be for like a 4 to 5 week pregnancy. And so that I was going to have to come back on, again, this is Thursday. So they're calling me to tell me that my HCG levels aren't where they need to be, and that I need to come back on Monday for repeat blood work. And like when I tell you that that was probably the weirdest weekend of my life, because it was just a lot of like confusion. It was a lot of like, I don't know if I'm actually pregnant or not, but I was also having like some spotting. And so in my mind, I kept thinking like, maybe this is a miscarriage, but like, I'm not going to know anything until Monday when I like, and if you think about it, if you've ever experienced this type of thing, and you've taken a test and you're not sure if it's positive or not or whatever, it's like Monday to Thursday might not seem like that long in retrospect, but like when you're in the middle of it, it was the longest weekend of my life, the strangest weekend of my life. And so obviously that weekend I just was in my head about it. And so I go back to the doctor on Monday and I have repeat blood work and they tell me that my HCG levels had like skyrocketed. So praise be, I was actually pregnant. So thankful. That's like what I prayed for the entire weekend. So I was really, really excited that it ended up being positive. But I think a couple weeks after that, I experienced some spotting again, which that happened to me in Worth's pregnancy, and everything ended up being fine. And so then I spotted again. So then, like, that was kind of scary. Well, then around, and every time something like that happens, you like don't know if you're supposed to call your OB and like rush to the doctor to make sure everything's okay. It's such a weird time period in your first trimester. And so then so then a couple weeks later, I think I was like 10 and a half weeks pregnant. I was at my store and granted, this whole time I'm feeling extremely nauseous, extremely sick. I'm like really not myself. If you know me, you know that I'm like a really bubbly person who's always, really motivated and like encouraging other people to do whatever they want in their life and business. And, I'm always like coming up with ideas. And, in first trimester, I was just like a potato. I was laying down all the time, didn't feel good. And so 10.5 weeks in, I have a subchorionic hematoma. I think that's the correct term. I may be messing that up. But basically, I was bleeding so much that I thought I was having a miscarriage at 10 and a half weeks. And I ended up going to the doctor and everything was fine. So that was another scare. That was so horrifying. And then a couple weeks later, I'm trying to remember like exactly, it doesn't really matter what the weeks are, but I also had like multiple UTIs. I've literally never had a UTI in pregnancy. And then I want to say around 12 weeks, 11 weeks, something like that, I started to get some really bad headaches, like headaches that I think I had a headache that lasted for 7 days. And for 2 of those days, it was the type of headache where like I couldn't look at the light. I couldn't like listen to sounds. Like it was really scary. And so I ended up going to my OB and it was one of those situations like I could barely even drive myself to the OB because like being in the light, I felt like a vampire. Like being in the light made me feel like I was going to die. And I guess, looking back now, I've kind of learned that is kind of common in your first trimester sometimes. It's also common with like migraines. I've never had a migraine before, so like I didn't know what it felt like. But anyways, I go to my OB and she is like, you need to go get a CT scan done. And you need to go to the ER. You need to go get a CT scan done. Oh man. So I go to the ER and when I get to the ER, I'm really just telling you all this story just to encourage you to advocate for yourself anytime you're in a medical situation because nobody knows your body the way you know your body. And yeah, there's a lot of questions in the medical field. I'm not saying I don't trust my OB. I'm not saying I don't, but you really just need to ask your own questions and really just do what feels right for you because again, you know your body better than anyone. So my OB sent me to the ER and told me to get a CT scan. Well, when I get to the ER, they're like, we don't do CT scans on pregnant people, especially this early in pregnancy. And so then I end up like not getting the CT scan after doing my own research. And so then we decide to do an MRI instead. So we make the appointment for like a week or so out to get an MRI done. And when my husband like takes off of work and we go to the appointment to get the MRI, I literally like cut off my permanent jewelry. Like I did all the things to prepare for the MRI and I get there and they're like, we don't do MRIs on pregnant people especially this early in pregnancy. I was like 12 weeks at this point. And I was like, what the heck? Like, none of these people are communicating, like, whatever. And so you could tell that the nurses were they were like not sure what they were supposed to do because, like, obviously it was ordered by somebody. And anyway, so I just felt really icky about the whole situation. So I was like, you know what? My headaches have gone away at this point. Yes, the headaches were awful while they were lasting, but I ended up doing some Like, I ended up getting some magnesium like sprays and some magnesium like gels to put on my head. And I also got one of those like headache caps that you get on Amazon that you can put in the freezer. And it helped my headaches a lot. And I can like link the headache cap. It's a vibe. Like when you put it on, it's actually the most unattractive thing I've ever seen in my life. But a lot of people told me that it helped them. And a lot of people were like, I live in this headache cap whenever I am in my first trimester of pregnancy. So apparently these types of things are sort of common. And this was my first experience with any sort of headache like that. But anyway, I ended up not getting a CT scan and not getting an MRI. So if there is something going on crazy in my brain, I don't know about it, and we're just going to rest in that. We're just going to rest in the fact that like I'm healthy and we're not going to worry about that. Not gonna worry about that. So after all of that, again, my mental state was literal trash my entire first trimester. So coming into second trimester, I was kind of coming out of some of that funk. I think we had a couple weeks where I was like, all right, we're not going to the ER. Hey, we're not bleeding. Okay, we're good. Like we're in that second trimester blissfulness. And so then I kind of start to be like, okay, now it's time for me to wean my almost 2-year-old. And so when I weaned Worth, who is my first son, I ended up going on like a little trip for 3 days. And so I decided to do the same thing with this, with this situation. So like I was coming up on like 14 weeks, 15 weeks. No, I might have been like 18 weeks pregnant. Sorry, I need to look back at all this. Not that any of this really matters to any of you, but I might have been 18 weeks when I was like, I was 18 weeks whenever I decided to go on my trip. So I go on a solo trip. And really, the reason that I decided to go on a solo trip is because of just the way this pregnancy has gone. It has really taught me that like we don't have to be a workhorse all the time. We don't have to be doing something that's productive all the time. We don't have to be doing stuff that's going to make us money all the time. I very much am always living in this world of like, if it's not making me money, I'm not doing it. Or if it's not something that's productive for my business, then I'm not going to engage in it. And that is a really toxic mindset to be in. And I feel like this pregnancy has taught me like we are healing from a lot of these toxic, overproductive, workaholic type tendencies that you can develop whenever you own your own business. And so, whenever I weaned Worth, I ended up going to Texas to like a flea market to go shopping for the store, because I needed to be quote unquote productive, all the things. Well, this time I was like, you know what? I'm going to go, what my body needs right now, what my body wants is the beach. I need the salt. I need the sun. I need a break. I do not need to go to Texas and haul a horse trailer down there and bring back loads and loads of furniture whenever I'm 18 weeks pregnant. Like, especially since this pregnancy has been crap. Like, I need to just rest, like I don't have to be productive all the time. My body just needs to rest and recoup and rejuvenate. So I ended up going to like the 30A area by myself. And I think I'm actually going to do a whole episode on that trip at some point because, it's kind of funny now. There were a lot of really triggered females on my Instagram whenever I was posting that I was on this trip by myself. Also, mind you, it was a weaning trip. Like, I was literally, the whole reason I went on the trip was because I was trying to be away from my almost 2-year-old actually, I think he was 2 at this point. He had just turned 2. He turned 2 on May 1st. So I was trying to get away from him for at least 2 or 3 days so that he could wean. And there were so many people online who were like literally so triggered by this. And I've decided that I'm going to actually talk about this so much more in the future because I think the reason that women get really triggered when they see another woman doing something for themselves or doing something that's like something that's kind of like a self-care type situation, they get really triggered because they feel like they could never do that. Does that make sense? Like they feel like they could never take time. Like, how could you ever take time away from your children? how could you ever afford to do something like that? Like, I just don't understand how somebody who has a husband who works all the time could leave their family behind for 3 days. And just, I mean, truly, you guys, like my inbox whenever I was on this trip it was night and day, because I had literally hundreds of messages from people being like, good for you. This is encouraging me to take a trip by myself. But then there were also a couple of messages of people who were very upset and very triggered that I was doing something like this for myself, and that I thought that I deserved to do something like this for myself, and that I, felt comfortable sharing that I was doing something like this. And so anyway, I don't want to like dive into all that right now, because I do want to talk about it so much more in the future. But anyway, so I ended up taking this trip for just me to get away so that I could wean my baby. And luckily it did work. So I also lined it up with like the moon cycles. On this beach trip, I was reading Do Less by Kate Northrup, and I can link it in the show notes. So this is my new favorite book. I literally made our book club read it, and our book club that I'm a part of, they're not super big into like nonfiction or anything like that. They're more fiction girlies, but I just said that everyone should read it because I think it's such an amazing book. But it's called Do Less by Kate Northrup, and I read this book while I was at the beach. And when I tell y'all, I cannot express to you how amazing it was to have those 3 days to myself, where I could sit there and just really decompress. I could journal. I could unpack some of the things that I have not been liking in my business, and I could kind of allow myself to dream and write out the things that I want to do in my business. And spoiler alert, this podcast is one of those things. This podcast is one of those things that like I have obviously been putting off for a really, really long time. If you listen to the last episode, I brought up the fact that I actually sat down with my phone. I recorded a voice memo that was kind of like a practice first episode for a podcast. I did that 3 years ago. 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. Like, that's how long I have been procrastinating this. That's how long it's been a dream of mine. And I always make excuses for myself. I'm always like, oh, the tech is too hard, or, nobody's going to listen, or just, every excuse under the sun that I could come up with. I have been coming up with every excuse for the past 3 years. And whenever I was on this solo trip, I finally made the decision. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to start this podcast, and it is what it is. And if people want to listen, great. If they don't want to listen, great. If I'm able to help one person in the process of starting this, then I'm able to help one person, and if I've helped one person, then I've done my job, and of course there's going to be my fair share of people out there. Again, y'all, like, I live in a small town. Like, I'm sure there's going to be people who don't understand me. They don't understand what I'm doing. They don't get the vibe. They don't get the intention behind it. They don't, there's going to be so many people out there who will not get it, but that's fine, because that means that this show is not for them. Like, they can go listen to another show, or they can go listen to their music, or they can go read whatever book they want to read. Like, this show is for the people who need to hear this message. And I believe that whoever needs to hear this message will find this message. The moms, the people who are creative, the people who want to pivot, the people who want to start a business, like, that's the type of people that this show is going to reach. And that's the type of people that will continue to listen week in and week out. And so anyway, on that trip, decided to start the podcast. Okay, on that trip, I also noticed on my leg that I had a really weird, like, kind of like a spider vein looking spot on like the bend of my leg. And it was kind of like it was like a bruise, and it showed up. It really started to show up on that trip whenever I was there. And I wasn't really worried about it because I had some weird veins show up in previous pregnancies. And so I just like sent a picture of it to my friend who works in the CVICU. And I was like, hey, what's going on with my leg? Like, also, if you've listened to previous episodes, you know that my brother passed away of a pulmonary embolism. And he essentially had a blood clot that started in his calf, and it traveled to his lungs. So he passed away of a PE at age 33. So I am age 33 now. I'll be 34 in a couple weeks. But if you can imagine, when you start to get like a really weird spot on your leg in pregnancy, you're like, hello, am I okay? Am I gonna die? Like, what's going on? So I end up going to my OB and showing her my leg. And she was pretty much like, yeah, it's probably just like a varicosity. It's not something to worry about. It's like it's in a vein that's on the surface. It's not, I don't think it's a blood clot. I don't think you have anything to worry about. Again, you guys, we have to advocate for ourselves, period. You, like, when you go to a doctor's office, you have to advocate for yourself, okay? Like, you are your biggest advocate. So I said, okay, I respect that, but I don't know if you've looked at my family history, but my brother literally died of a PE when he was 33. So is there any way that we can get an ultrasound done of this leg to make sure that like things are good, things are Gucci, right? And she was like, yeah, no problem. So she orders the ultrasound of the leg. I go on July 14th, I think, July 14th. And they had ordered an ultrasound of the right leg, which is where the bruising was. And when I get in there, I'm like, can I also order an ultrasound of the left leg? Like, just to make sure, because they had not ordered the left leg. Again, you have to be your own advocate. So I get an ultrasound of both legs, and in the right leg, it shows that I actually do have a blood clot. So here I am at like 24 weeks into my pregnancy. And I find out that I have a blood clot, you guys, and that's how my brother died. And I'm 33 and he was 33. So if you can imagine, I freaked out. Like, freaked out. Again, a blood clot may not sound like a big deal to some people, because I don't even have like a deep vein thrombosis. Like, I don't even have a DVT. I don't have a PE. I don't have anything like that. I have something called an SGV. It's superficial vein something or other. I would have to like look up the exact name of it, but it's a superficial blood clot. And actually they told me, if it weren't for your family's history, we wouldn't even like treat you. We would just tell you to go home, put heat compress on it, be sure you're walking, like wear compression stockings, and like hope that it goes away, right? Like that's kind of what they told me. But they said, because of your family history, because of your brother, we are gonna actually put you on a blood thinner. So I'm on a blood thinner now. It's Lovenox. And I'm just telling you guys all this not to scare you. I'm not telling you all of this to freak you out if you are pregnant or if you're trying to get pregnant. But I'm just telling you, like, advocate for yourself, ask questions, don't overthink this. If you're pregnant, don't overthink this and be like, oh my God, like, do I have a clot? Oh my God, I'm bruising here. Does that mean that I have, like, please don't go home and do that. Like, please don't do that. I am just literally telling you this because this is my experience and this is what I've been going through. And so anyway, they put me on a blood thinner, and it is just like, I can't explain to you the way I acted the week that I found out about this situation. I truly took it as like I was finding out that I had some sort of disease that I would die from, right? Because the only person that I have ever known, or that I have known about in my life that had a clot, he died, And so also kind of not a mistake, but like something that I did in the process of this was like, I kept it all to myself for a long time. I didn't tell anyone about it. Like, I literally told my husband, and we didn't tell anyone. Like, we didn't tell people in our family. We didn't tell my mother-in-law. Like, we didn't tell anyone because I was like still processing it, you know what I mean? And I also didn't want to scare anyone. I didn't want to make anyone worry. Also, my family is like still grieving the loss of my brother. So it's like, I really didn't want to freak anyone out. So I didn't say anything to anyone for like a month. Okay. I mean, I had some people who knew about it, like my friend who works in the CVICU. Like, I was talking to her about it the whole time, and bless her, she is like one of those that like I will send a text message to her at 3:00 in the morning freaking out, and she deals with all of my anxieties and all my stresses in those moments. So shout out to her. But anyway, so in the week of me finding out about my blood clot, I think I cried every single day. I was like writing letters to my children. I was like writing letters to my husband, and I was like, is this the end? Am I gonna die? Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? And so basically from the time I went on my solo trip in June to the time I found out about this clot, like, I had made up my mind that I was going to start this podcast, but I hadn't like really done a whole lot of research. Like, I had like kind of bought the microphone, but like I didn't really like take the time to even text anybody to come set it up for me, or like, like I had done little things here and there, but like I wasn't taking it seriously, right? Well, then after I found out about this blood clot, I was like, oh my gosh, like y'all, I've got to start this podcast, because again, this is something that's been placed on my heart for years, that I have been ignoring, that I have been procrastinating for years, and I was just putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. Okay, now this gets to like some weird, like freaky type stuff. So I've kind of talked about on my Instagram, like how I was feeling so pushed to start this show. But again, I was in my head, I was making all the excuses, whatever. But then I started having all these dreams. Okay. Now I'm going to sit here and say, I do not know if you're the type of person who like believes in listening to your dreams, or if you believe that like if they're from God, or if they're from angels, or if they're from like something like a darker source. You know what I mean? Like there's probably a lot of, people out there who have a lot of thoughts about this type of thing. So I am just telling you what has happened to me. Again, I am sharing my story, I'm sharing my experiences, and you can apply it to your life if you want. And if you take what you want, leave what you want, I don't care. I'm just telling you what's happened to me. So I want to say back in probably the spring sometime, probably around the time I went on my solo trip, I started having these dreams where, and this is actually like really gross, but I started having dreams where I would be like really busy doing stuff. Like every single dream, I would be really busy like trying to go get something done, or I'd be really busy trying to like go really fast to this event, or I'd be getting ready and I'd be behind or whatever, or I'd be trying to tell somebody something, but I could never get the task done because I would have like vomit coming out of my mouth. And the vomit would always be like, this is so gross, but it'd be like in the form of like rice or oatmeal, or like, it's almost like every time that I would try to get my to-do list done and my task done, it's like I couldn't get through the list because I would have to like clear out my mouth. Like in my dreams, I'm always running to the trash can to like clear out my mouth. And like, if you can see me on video, like I'm literally scooping stuff out of my mouth in these dreams and like throwing it in the trash can. And like, it's every time I try to go and finish that conversation with somebody, or I try to go finish the task, I always have to run to scoop things out of my mouth. And so like, sometimes it's like my teeth, like sometimes it's like my own teeth are falling out, and I'm just like, but every time I clear it out, it comes back. And it's like such a miserable dream because I can't get done what I want to get done because I'm always having to clear out my mouth. Okay, you get the point. You get the point. So I start doing some research, and I start digging into like dreams and what they mean and all this stuff, and finding out that dreams like that are very tied to like, you have something in your life that you are not dealing with, or you have something in your life that you are not saying, or you have something in your life that you are avoiding. And so as you can see how all this ties together, I was like, wow, okay. And then I actually told a girl, she came in my store a couple weeks ago, and I was telling her about these dreams, and she was like, okay, did you know that a lot of times if you have dreams about your teeth falling out or like throwing up, that it is because you have wisdom inside of you that needs to come out? Like it's like begging to come out. And so that's what those dreams are related to. So when I tell you that the day I figured out that I like decided that I was going to start this show, and that I was actually going to like physically start taking steps, like ordering the microphone and like actually doing things to make it happen, y'all, the dreams stopped. The dreams literally stopped. Like, how crazy is that? And then one day, I want to say some girl like came in my store, and she like kind of made me feel weird about the podcast. Like, she was like an older lady, and I want to say I like shared the plan with her, or like the idea that I wanted to start one, and she made me like kind of get in my head about it, and she made me like start second guessing the podcast, and she made me like start to like really question myself. I don't even remember what she said, but it was almost something along the lines of like, okay, if you follow me on, another reason I want to start this podcast is because if you follow me on Instagram, I will get on stories sometimes and I will just go. Like, I will just rant. I will not rant, but like I will get on there and talk about something. But obviously on Instagram, you have to like, it cuts you off after like however many minutes. And then you have to like upload that and then get on and like record another one. And so like, I just got to a point where I had so much to say, And Instagram wasn't really conducive for just ongoing conversations like this or ongoing, talking like this. And so this lady, I think, who came in my store, she said something along the lines of like, yeah, sometimes I just have to turn off your stories because like I'm older than you and I've already been in your shoes. And so I already know all the stuff. Like I've already been through all the stuff that you've been through. I already know all the lessons that you're learning right now. So I don't really feel like I need to listen to your stories. So a lot of times I just click off of them. Okay, and she didn't say that to me to like hurt my feelings, but as if you can imagine, I got in my head about that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like then maybe I should." Sorry, if you hear my dog growling like that, he's like scratching his nose right now. But anyway, I got in my head and I'm like, "Well, maybe I shouldn't start a podcast. Maybe I'm, you just start to like second guess. You think like, "Oh, maybe I'm annoying, like blah blah blah." And so that night, after I had second guessed myself, I had another dream about the throwing up and the stuff coming out of my mouth. And so it's like on the days where I am actively pursuing this podcast and this show, the dreams aren't there. And they're nightmares, y'all. Like they're straight up nightmares. They're recurring. I hate them. Like I'm not kidding. In my first trimester, I got to a point, I told Will, I was like, I cannot eat rice. I cannot eat oatmeal. I cannot eat anything that I've been throwing up in these dreams. Like I cannot, because it makes me sick even thinking about it. So these nightmares would happen on the days where I wasn't actively making steps towards this show. So that's another reason that I like just had to start it, because I was like, the dreams have got to stop. Like I've got to make these dreams stop in some sort of way, or I'm going to like have to go to a therapist, because like I didn't even want to go to sleep at night because I knew that the dreams would be there. But then once I started pursuing the podcast, they went away. So anyways, that was absolutely insane. And then one day I had a dream about this girl. She also has the podcast. She's close to my age. And I had a dream about her. It was like she was like clapping in my face and she was saying, "Paige, this is a season for zero chaos in your life." I think it's because that particular week, I think our cat died. We live out in the country and like we have like indoor outdoor cats. We don't have any cats right now, but like I was thinking about getting another cat that week, and she literally came to me in my dream and she was like, "Paige, this is a season of letting go of a lot of things." And she was like, "You do not need any more chaos in your life." Not that animals are chaos, but it is just one more thing. It is just one more thing to add to your plate, one more thing to worry about, one more thing to feed. And she came to me in my dream and she was like, "No more chaos. Like, this is a time for rest. This is a time for reflection. This is a season of slowing down and listening to yourself." And so then I had that dream. And then one day I had another dream. I was taking a nap in the middle of the day. Also, like being pregnant with this third baby, I have had to, and just being not feeling good and stuff. There's been a lot of times where I've had to take naps, which is a good thing. Like you're allowed to take naps, even if you're a small business owner. Like you're allowed to take naps. Like it's not gonna all blow up in your face. Like the business will be there tomorrow, even if you take a nap today, right? So I was taking a nap in the middle of the day, and there was like this voice that came to me in my dream. Again, not sure if it's God, not sure who it is. Could be a really bad dark source. Who the freak knows? But it came to me and it said, "You are meant to do really big things in this world, and you are meant to make a really big impact." And I can't even believe I'm telling you guys this right now, because like I feel like this is like a confession. I feel like this is literally confessions. Usher confessions. The voice said, "You are going to do big things in this world. You're going to make a huge impact. And none of it is going to have anything to do with selling furniture." What? Like, what? I'm sorry. That is how I make money right now. Like, that is my job. That is how I make money. I also teach other people how to sell furniture. Like, it is just, when I woke up from that dream, I was like, man, like, why does this keep happening to me? Like, why does this keep happening to me? And so, again, I mean, I haven't burned my whole business down or anything. I'm still selling furniture, obviously. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, obviously still selling furniture right now. But again, I'm just telling you my experiences, telling you what has happened to me. Okay, and then just this week, you guys, just this week, like 2 days ago, I had a dream telling me that I am supposed to be teaching women, particularly moms, about how to manage small business life and being a mom. Like I literally had a dream that was like, you are supposed to be teaching women how to manage their small businesses while also juggling being a mom, while also juggling being a wife. Like you're supposed to be teaching them about the messy middle because you have built your own business. You know, you've built a creative business from the ground up, and there's so many moms out there who are struggling with, you know, how to manage it all, how to do it all. And I do have people all the time come at me like, I don't know how you do it all. Like you're always like doing this and doing that, but you also seem like a really present mom. And, you know, I actually was texting my friend the other day and we were just talking because she just had her third baby and we have had babies like kind of around the same time. But hers are always like a month or two before mine. And so I was texting her the other day and she was just kind of telling me like how just kind of overstimulating it is to have three babies, especially, you know, in those early days. And my number one question for her was like, how are you working? Like when are you incorporating work and answering emails and, you know, not dropping the ball on stuff when you are trying to be present with a newborn? Like that was like my number one question for her. But then at the same time, I'm like, I've been doing that. I've been juggling and doing all those things for the past 5 years. And so anyway, this dream that I had the other day was just like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And so, you guys, I don't know what any of this stuff means. I don't know. You know, I'm also one of those people who I overthink everything. I'm going to overthink it and overplay it, and I'm going to question it. I'm also going to be like, well, who did that come from? Like, who was speaking to me in that dream? You know, like, I'm probably going to overthink it all. And I don't know if I'll move forward with anything that I've learned. But I will say, like, I had to move forward with the podcast because of the throwing up dreams. I had to move forward with just this whole dream of mine of encouraging and helping other people because, y'all, I was also reading in my journal. I've also mentioned on my Instagram that, like, I've been journaling for 15 years. It's been, like, kind of on and off, but I have been journaling for the past 15 years. And ever since 2020, I kind of developed like a template, like a journal template that I've personally been using ever since 2020 that I kind of developed. And it's just a journal template that like kind of helps me ground myself. It's like 7 questions, 7 quick prompts. It literally takes 5 minutes to fill it out. And it just helps me kind of pay attention to like what I'm enjoying, what I'm not enjoying, the things that I feel like I need to let go of. It's also like, what are you grateful for? Just things like that. And I can also link that in the show notes as well. It's on my website. If you go under like digital products tab, it's underneath maybe journal, daily journal. I don't know. I'll link it. But anyways, I was reading in one of my journals from, I think it was from like whenever I lived in Austin, Texas. And that was when I was 23. And my biggest thing that I wrote about was like, it was like a prayer. It was like, God, please help me figure out what I'm supposed to be doing in this life because I feel like I'm supposed to be an encourager. I feel like I've always been told ever since I was a child, even in like Sunday school, I've always been told that my spiritual gift was encouragement. Like I'm supposed to be encouraging people. And so my prayer in this journal was like, God, please help me figure out a way to make an impact in this world. And please help me figure out a way to help people and serve other people. And so, I don't know, just reading that and just kind of this show falling into place in the time period that it's falling into place. I don't know. It all feels right and it all feels aligned. And so, I don't know what the furniture thing means. Who knows? Who the heck knows what that means for my future? But I mean, honestly, like if I'm being really honest, like selling furniture is what pays my bills right now. So that's what we're doing right now. But again, like it's all in the learning and it's all pivoting as a process, And I learned that whenever I was a speech pathologist, obviously pivoting out of speech pathology. It's not an overnight thing. It's not going to happen overnight. Like you're not going to go to bed one day. And I don't know, maybe if you get fired from your job, like it may happen, which is, that's part of your story. But it's like, you're not going to go to bed one night as a speech pathologist and wake up the next day as a full-time like entrepreneur or like solo entrepreneur or whatever, like it's a process and it's a lot of getting quiet with yourself. And it's a lot of turning inward and figuring out what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you. And so anyways, all of this to say the overthinking and the rumination and the should I start this? Should I not start this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? Is this the right time? Is this not the right time? I firmly believe that things will all happen like when they are supposed to. I think they will fall into place and they will happen when God and universe like wants it to happen and when it's supposed to happen. I don't think that I was supposed to start this podcast 3 years ago. I don't think that my story was ready yet, but for whatever reason, it's been processing, it's been incubating for the past 3 years, and like now is my time. Now is my time, and that's why I'm here. I'm like, sorry, I'm like kind of looking at my notes to make sure I cover everything that I want to cover in this episode. Okay, the note, like, I feel like I'm gonna get used to being on this mic. I'm gonna get used to sharing what I want to share, but the referring back to the notes, I have to do it, you guys, because my brain is all over the place all the time. But anyway, one thing that I wanted to say is that, like, yes, this blood clot situation has really sucked. Like, yeah, it's really freaking sucked, okay? But in sharing my blood clot story, I finally decided to share it on Instagram. And whenever I did, I was so thankful because I had people coming out of the woodworks being like, girl, I had a DVT in pregnancy, or girl, I had a pulmonary embolism and I survived, like, or girl, like, this happened to me. I was placed on Eliquis, or I was placed on Lovenox, or like whatever. Like, it has been so encouraging to like hear all the positive stories, and like all these people are still alive to tell me to tell me their story. They're not dead. They're not 6 feet under, right? And so, like, the only person that I ever knew who had a blood clot was my brother, and he died, right? So also, this is just encouragement that, like, if you are going through something right now, or you have like a scary diagnosis, or you have just anything in your life that you're kind of keeping under lock and key and you're kind of keeping it a secret because you are afraid of, like, one reason I didn't want to share about the blood clot on social media is because I didn't want people to think that I was like looking for attention, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want people to think that I was like, my gosh, like, look what's happening to me. I'm in the hospital. Like, just like, I didn't want people to think that I was like searching for pity. So I didn't share about it for a long time. But I was also really freaking scared, which is another reason I didn't share about it for a long time. But if you are going through something, share it with someone. Share it with a friend, share it with a trusted family member, share it with someone that's not your husband. You know what I mean? Like, share it with someone outside of like your circle, because you never know. I'm not saying that you have to go to your Instagram stories and blast it to thousands of people, but like, it helped me a lot when I could hear other people's stories about their experience with blood clots, okay? It helped me so much. So I just, like, if you can imagine and if you can tell, this whole, really since February, my life has just been busted wide open because I have been spending more time with myself. I've also been walking a lot more, you guys. Like, my nightly walks, I was really doing them a lot more like back in like June, July, August, before my husband got really busy with harvest season. So like right now I'm kind of solo parenting. When I go pick up the boys from school, I will be solo parenting until my husband gets home at like 10 o'clock. And so I haven't been doing my nightly walks for the past like month or so, just because I obviously can't leave my boys in the house by themselves to go like walk by myself. I can't do that. So, but back in the summer, like, I was really on my walking grind. I was really walking. And while I walk, I either will walk just totally in silence and just kind of like listen to the wind and listen to my thoughts and just kind of notice where my heart is at and notice what I'm feeling and all those things. I will also listen to an app. It's called Activations app. I've talked about it a lot on my Instagram. Mimi Bouchard is the creator of it. And if you don't follow her, if you don't have this app, I'm not affiliated in any sort of way. I am just a huge proponent for this app. It's called Activations. And if you are in like a dark spot in your life, I actually started listening to this app a little over a year ago. It was like last spring. I was in a really weird funk. I was in a dark place with like relationships, like friendships, like just a lot of ups and downs and just catty things that were going on around me. And I started walking every single day and listening to this app. And I'm not kidding when I tell you, like, it totally changed my life. It totally changed my life. It changed like how I view myself. She basically combines like meditation. It's almost like a more like modern form of meditation, but it's basically like her speaking like affirmations into you. And it's just amazing. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. My husband makes fun of me. We had people over at our house the other night, and he was like, me and my husband, if you know us, like when we are with our friends, like we pick at each other so much. Like I'll pick on him, he picks on me. And it like obviously if there's any alcohol involved, like with him or me, or obviously I'm not drinking right now because I'm pregnant, but like he had a couple drinks and he was just like picking at me. And he was joking, like telling all of our friends, like, y'all, I cannot with her nightly routine. Like he's like, I walk past the bathroom and I hear her in the shower and I hear, you are worthy. You are a queen. You are, anyways, he's making fun of my app that I listen to. But when I tell you that this app is life changing, you need to look into it. It's called Activations. It's by Mimi Bouchard. I actually bought her book recently. I haven't started it yet, but anyway, it's totally changed my life. I also like to listen to podcasts. Obviously, I've been listening to podcasts since, 2019. What else has helped me? So I actually did put together this whole like sort of guide of like how to get out of a funk. And it's like the 12 things that I have been actively doing in my life when I can feel myself starting to get a little funky. And that is also something that I can link in the show notes. These show notes are about to be like link. Like it's about to be linked with all the things that I've talked about in this episode. But again, I'm here to help y'all. I am here to pour into you. And that also brings me to a point that I also wanted to talk about. So with the whole link thing. So, oh man. Obviously, as a small business owner and as somebody who's like probably a little bit neurodivergent, my ideas can sway one day from one thing to the next thing. I think yesterday I posted on Instagram, like my stories have been so all over the place today because I was like sharing links to makeup. I was sharing links to lipstick. I was also like sharing paint colors for our bathroom. I was also like picking through a house. So I was like selling random vintage things on my story, but I was also talking about bed sharing with my kids. Like there was just so many random freaking things going on my story yesterday. But one thing that has like been screaming at me for the past how many ever months, when I'm in my thoughts and when I'm in my head, is like, I want to be doing something bigger with my platform, and I want to be doing something that's a little bit more meaningful than like just, and maybe it's that dream, maybe it's not, but like just selling furniture. But really it's because like furniture is a materialistic item, right? Like, I don't want to be that type of person who is over here saying, you're not going to be a happy person unless you have this mid-century credenza that's $600, or you aren't going to be able to feel joy unless you have this matching vintage lamp pair from the 1960s. Obviously I love all those things. I mean, like you can see my house in the background. I love a good quilt. I love a good piece of art. I love a good lamp. I love all of those things. And I'll never not love those things because I love a good, pretty item. But at the same time, that's not what life should be all about. You know what I mean? And I think that we should also just be focused on like helping each other through daily life, like the perfect vintage vase might help you as like a quick hit. It might be like a dopamine hit, but it's not going to help you in the long run if you're like really struggling deep down with certain things. And so, a lot of what I do on my Instagram and what I've been doing for a while is like very materialistic stuff. So it's like, buy this, do this. Here's this link for this outfit. Here's these cute cowboy boots. Like, and again, I don't hate those things. I like to look cute. Like who doesn't? But at the end of the day, the type of things that I want to be sharing, I want them to be things that you can like really actually use, that will really actually help you in your life. And so that's why I developed that guide of like how to get out of a funk, because I have so many friends here recently who are just like, I'm in a funk and I can't get out, or like, I've experienced a loss and I can't move past the loss, or just like I've had a divorce and I can't move forward. Like there are so many people out there who are like really going through some really dark things. And I kind of want to be like the hand to hold while you're going through those things. But I also want to be the person that encourages you to not give up on yourself and not give up on the things that you enjoy doing. And I'm not saying that everything can be fixed with a hobby. Not saying that, but hobbies aren't bad. Hobbies aren't bad. You know, I feel like a lot of the time, the other day I was texting my friend. She's a client, but she's also a friend, and I'm helping her with her bedroom. And the other day I was literally sitting in the ER again. Like, why am I in the freaking ER all the time? I was sitting in the ER and I was texting her being like, hey, which chair are we going to get for your corner in your bedroom? Have you ordered the curtains yet? Like, whatever. And she was like, first off, how are you feeling? And I was like, well, LOL, I'm actually in the ER right now. But like, doing design things and focusing on wallpaper and focusing on curtains, like that is like a distraction for me. So, and we can get into all that later about how like some days I think that I've used design and I've used art and I've used all that stuff to distract me from like deeper issues going on, and just like how it's like a band-aid sometimes that I use. But again, at least I make money doing something that I enjoy doing. Like, can you imagine being like can you imagine experiencing anxiousness and experiencing, I'm not saying that I'm depressed, but like, can you imagine being someone who's experiencing some depressive symptoms, or being someone who is like in a really dark place, and then you have to wake up and you have to go to a job that you hate every day? Like, can you, like, you know, I'm just like, that's awful. And I was in that position for a long time where I was in a really dark, grieving place. And I also had to wake up and go spend 8 hours doing something that I didn't enjoy. But now I live this life where if I'm having a funky day, a weird day, at least I get to wake up and go pick out wallpaper samples for somebody. Or at least I get to wake up and go to a store that is inspiring and it's like something that I love to do. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't imagine like continuing to live a life where I am not mentally okay, but then I also have to go to a job that makes me not mentally okay. You know, like, anyways, I'm on my soapbox right now. I think I've completely gotten off of my outline. Anyways, I think I'm wrapping up this episode because I could just chat with you guys, chat for the next hour. Again, this is so fun to me. I love this so much. And I also want you guys to shoot me a message on Instagram. I actually started an Instagram account. It's the Open Your Own Door podcast. So I want you guys to shoot me a message on either that account or just Little Yellow Door account. The Little Yellow Door account is always like my OG account. But shoot me a message and tell me like what you're liking about the podcast, and tell me also the types of things that you want to hear about. I have some episodes planned out. I really want to start to talk about like some of the monetization and like how I make my money and things like that, because there's a lot to unpack there. A lot to talk about there, of like the different revenue streams, and also just addressing the elephant in the room of like, you know, I've had people in my ear for a long time saying things like, oh, you only get to have this fun job because your husband makes money, like blah, blah, blah. Just whatever, like stories or narratives people want to tell themselves. But that's like saying, oh, well, you get to be a lawyer because your family paid for you to go to college. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, all that is types of like the type of things that I want to talk about and cover in future episodes. If you are someone who's like wanting to start a small business, or you're someone who's wanting to sell your craft, or you're wanting to like bake something, but you're afraid of what somebody's going to say about you, like, trust me, I'm sure that whatever could be said about someone has been said about me. So like, you know, you're like, it's like if that's your excuse for not starting something, like you're preaching to the choir here. You know what I mean? But anyways, so I have like a whole list of episodes and things that I want to talk about, that I want to teach you guys about. And part of me just wishes that like the people who are listening were just in this room with me so that you could like ask questions. And I don't know, I may start like a little Facebook community. You guys kind of let me know what y'all are wanting, because I feel like a Facebook group could be beneficial, but I also just don't want like to be on a million platforms all the time. I really love my Instagram, but if you're on Instagram, you don't really have like the community that you would have in a Facebook group. And I really do want this podcast and the people who listen to this podcast to be a community. And I want you to give me ideas for what to talk about and what you guys are needing help with. So, anyway, thank y'all for listening. I should probably be going to get my boys now. I still have like an hour before they are, have to be picked up, but I like to pick them up earlier just because. Anyways, okay, I hope y'all have a beautiful night, and I will see you guys in the next episode.